All right, listen up. I want to talk to you about something real, something that keeps too many people trapped in toxic relationships. Now, some of why all are asking, why don't they just leave? Aha, that's the wrong question. The real question is, why do they stay? See, people don't stay in toxic relationships because they want to suffer. No, they stay because they believe this is as good as it gets. They've been broken down, beaten up mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. And when you've been in the storm too long, you start thinking the storm is home. You ever see a bird in a cage with the door wide open? That bird ain't flying away because it doesn't even know it's free. That's what a toxic relationship does. It reprograms the mind. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you believe love is supposed to hurt. Now, let's get real. Some folks stay because of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of what's out there. Fear of not being enough for someone else. And that fear, it keeps him locked in. But let me tell you something, being alone is better than being in a room full of pain. Some stay because of history. Oh, we've been together for years. So what? If you've been drinking poison for years, you're supposed to keep drinking it. Time does not equal love. And then there's guilt. The manipulation. They got you thinking, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. No. Love does not destroy. Love does not break you down. If you got to lose yourself to keep them, that ain't love. So what do? You wake up. You take back your power. You step out of the storm and into the sunlight. Because you deserve better. Say it with me, I deserve better. You see, when someone is in a toxic relationship, it's not as simple as just packing up and walking away. To an outsider, it might seem obvious. If they're hurting you, why don't you just leave? But that's the problem. When you're inside that situation, when you've been living in that pain for so long, your mind starts to play tricks on you. You don't just wake up one day and decide to stay in something that's hurting you. No, it happens over time. Slowly, the toxic partner chips away at your confidence, your worth, your sense of self, until you start believing this is as good as it gets. That maybe love is supposed to be painful. That maybe the problem isn't the relationship, maybe the problem is you. It starts with small things. Little comments, little actions, little moments where they make you feel like you're not enough. Maybe they criticize the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you laugh. Maybe they make you feel like everything you do is wrong, like you're constantly walking on eggshells, trying not to upset them. And at first, you brush it off. You tell yourself it's just a bad day. They didn't mean it. But then the bad days become bad weeks. The bad weeks become bad months. And before you even realize it, you're stuck in a cycle where their mistreatment has become your normal. The human mind is powerful, but it's also fragile. When someone hears something long enough, they start to believe it. If a person keeps telling you, no one else will love you. If they keep reminding you, you'll never find better than me. If they drill into your mind, you're lucky I put up with you. After a while, those words become a part of you. You don't even question them anymore. You start thinking, what if they're right? What if leaving means being alone forever? What if no one else will ever want me? What if this is the best I can do? And once that fear takes hold, it's like a chain around your ankle, keeping you from running even when the door is wide open. Then there's the manipulation, the mind games. Toxic people have a way of making their victims feel dependent on them. One day they break you down, make you feel worthless, make you question everything about yourself. The next day, they're sweet, they're loving. They apologize. I didn't mean it. You know I love you. I just get angry sometimes, but it's only because I care. And that little glimpse of love, that moment of kindness, becomes enough to keep you hanging on. You think, see, they do love me. They can change. But that's the trap. That's the hook that keeps you stuck. Because right when you're ready to leave, they reel you back in with just enough affection to make you stay. Another reason people stay is because toxic relationships don't always start out toxic. In the beginning, everything feels perfect. The love is intense. The chemistry is strong. They make you feel special, like you finally found the person who truly sees you. And that feeling, that's what keeps people holding on. They think, if it was good before, maybe it can be good again. So they keep waiting for things to go back to the way they were. waiting for the person who once made them feel so loved to come back. But what they don't realize is that the beginning was never real. It was a mask, a performance. And once the toxic partner knew they had control, the mask came off. But the biggest reason people stay in toxic relationships, they don't believe they deserve better. And that right there, that's the saddest part. Because the truth is, they do. Everyone does. No one deserves to be belittled, controlled, manipulated, or made to feel small. No one deserves to cry themselves to sleep at night, wondering why the person they love keeps hurting them. No one deserves to live in fear, constantly questioning their worth. But when someone has been broken down for so long, when they've been conditioned to accept mistreatment as love, they stop seeing their own value. They stop believing they are worthy of more. And until they can break free from that mindset, they will stay. Not because they want to suffer, but because they don't see a way out. And this is why we need to stop judging people who are trapped in these situations. It's easy to say, if it were me, I'd leave. But unless you've been there, unless you've felt what it's like to be completely stripped of your identity or confidence, your identity, your belief in yourself, you have no idea how hard it is. Leaving a toxic relationship isn't just about walking out the door. It's about rewiring your mind, rebuilding your self-worth, finding the courage to believe that you deserve better, even when every voice in your head is telling you otherwise. And that takes strength. That takes time. And that takes a whole lot of healing. Toxic relationships are not just about physical control. They are about mental control. It's easy to look at someone in a bad relationship and think they can just leave whenever they want. But what people don't understand is that by the time a person realizes they are in a toxic situation, their mind has already been rewired to believe that leaving is impossible. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, methodical process. Bit by bit, the toxic partner breaks down their confidence, isolates them from their support system, and makes them question their own reality. Before they know it, the victim isn't just trapped in the relationship, they're trapped inside their own mind. You see, toxic relationships operate like a psychological prison. Imagine a bird that has been kept in a cage for years. At first, it fights, it flaps its wings, it tries to escape. But over time, when every attempt to fly is met with rejection, pain, or punishment, the bird stops trying. It accepts the cage as home. And here's the saddest part: when the door is finally opened, when freedom is right there, the bird still doesn't leave. Why? Because it doesn't believe it can survive outside that cage. That's exactly how toxic relationships work. The door is open, but the mind has been trained to believe it's locked. One of the ways a toxic partner reprograms the mind is through something called gaslighting. This is when they manipulate a person into questioning their own thoughts, memories, and even sanity. They might say things like, "that never happened," or "you're too sensitive," or "you're imagining things." Over time, the victim starts to doubt themselves. They think, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I am the problem. And once that self-doubt creeps in, the toxic partner has full control. Because when you don't trust your own mind, you start relying on them to tell you what's real. And that's a dangerous place to be. Then there's the isolation. Toxic partners know that the best way to keep control is to cut off outside influences. Friends, family, coworkers, anyone who might say, "hey, this isn't normal," is slowly pushed away. They start by creating small divisions. Your friends don't really care about you. Your family is always in our business. Why do you need them when you have me? And before the victim realizes it, their support system is gone. Now there's no one to help them see the truth. No one to remind them of who they were before the relationship. The toxic partner becomes their only reality. Another form of mental conditioning is the cycle of abuse. This is what keeps people trapped more than anything. See, toxic relationships aren't always bad. If they were, leaving would be easy. No, they mix in just enough love, just enough kindness, just enough hope to keep their partner hanging on. It's like a gambler at a slot machine losing over and over, but every now and then hitting a small win. And that little taste of happiness, that's what makes them stay. They think, see, they can be good. Maybe if I try harder, maybe if I love them more, they'll change. But that's the trick. The highs keep them hoping. The lows keep them trapped. And the cycle repeats. Then there's the fear of the unknown. When someone has been in a toxic relationship for so long, they forget what life was like before it. They forget what healthy love feels like. They forget what it's like to make choices for themselves, to laugh freely, to be themselves without fear of judgment. And the idea of starting over? That's terrifying. The toxic partner has convinced them that they are nothing without them, that no one else will want them, that the world outside the relationship is even scarier than the pain inside it. And so, even though they are unhappy, they stay because fear of the unknown feels worse than the pain they already know. And let's not forget about guilt and obligation. Sometimes the victim feels responsible for their toxic partner. They think, I can't leave them. They need me. They might have been manipulated into believing that if they leave, the toxic partner will fall apart, or worse, hurt themselves. And so they stay not because they are happy, but because they feel trapped by their own compassion. But here's the truth. A relationship should never feel like a prison sentence. Love is not supposed to be a burden. Love is not supposed to break you. And yet, when the mind has been reprogrammed to accept suffering as love, breaking free feels impossible, even when the cage door is wide open. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in human nature. It can drive people to do things they never thought they would, and it can also keep them from doing the things they know they should. When it comes to toxic relationships, fear is often the invisible chain that holds people in place. Not love, not loyalty, not hope, fear. And this fear takes many forms. Fear of being alone, fear of what's waiting on the other side, fear of not being enough, fear of making a mistake. All of it works together to create a prison without walls, a cage where the door is open, but no one dares to step out. The fear of being alone is one of the strongest reasons people stay in toxic relationships. Society has drilled into our minds that being in a relationship, any relationship, is better than being single. Movies, songs, even family and friends all push this idea that being alone means you failed. So even when a relationship is toxic, even when it's filled with pain and manipulation, people think, at least I have someone. They tell themselves that being with the wrong person is better than having no one at all. But here's the thing. Being alone does not mean being lonely. You can be in a room full of people and still feel completely empty. And you can be by yourself and feel free for the first time in years. Then there's the fear of starting over. See, when someone has been in a toxic relationship for a long time, they forget what life was like before it. Their identity has been wrapped up in the relationship. They've changed the way they think, the way they dress, the way they speak, all to keep the peace. And the idea of stepping out into the unknown, that's terrifying. They wonder, who am I without them? What do I even like anymore? Can I do this on my own? And that fear keeps them in place. Because as painful as the relationship is, at least it's familiar. At least they know what to expect. And sometimes, the fear of uncertainty feels worse than the pain they already know. And let's talk about self-doubt. Toxic partners have a way of making their victims feel like they are the problem. Every fight, every argument, every moment of pain, it's somehow their fault. They hear things like, you make me act this way. If you weren't so difficult, we wouldn't have these problems. No one else would put up with you. And after a while, those words start to feel like the truth. They start to believe, maybe I am too much. Maybe I'm the reason this relationship is falling apart. And when you believe you're the problem, you don't think leaving will fix anything. You think, why leave? I'll just bring these same problems into my next relationship. So instead of walking away, they stay. Not because they are happy, but because they don't believe they deserve anything better. Another powerful fear is the fear of regret. The toxic partner has spent years convincing them that leaving would be a mistake. They say things like, you'll never find someone like me. No one will love you like I do. If you leave, you'll realize you made a huge mistake. And the mind starts to believe it. They start thinking, what if I leave and I regret it? What if no one else wants me? What if they really were the best I could do? That what if becomes a powerful force, strong enough to keep someone stuck in a place they know is hurting them, because in their mind, a painful relationship feels safer than the possibility of an even greater pain, the pain of regret. And then there's the fear of judgment, the fear of what people will say. When someone has been in a toxic relationship for a long time, the world around them often doesn't see what's happening behind closed doors. Maybe they've posted happy pictures online. Maybe they've defended their partner to friends and family. Maybe they've convinced themselves for so long that everything is fine that they don't know how to admit it's not. And so they stay because they don't want to face the embarrassment of saying, I was wrong. They don't want to hear people say, we told you so. So instead of leaving, instead of choosing their own happiness, they stay to protect their pride. But perhaps the deepest fear of all, the fear of never being loved again. See, toxic partners don't just hurt people, they make them believe they are unlovable. They make them feel like they are difficult, broken, damaged. And so even when the relationship is painful, even when it's toxic, they think at least this person loves me. They don't realize that real love doesn't break you. Real love doesn't leave you crying at night. Real love doesn't make you question your worth. But when someone has been conditioned to believe they are unworthy of love, they hold on to whatever little love they can get, even if it's not real, even if it's toxic. Because the fear of never being loved again is greater than the pain of staying loved. Real love is supposed to bring peace, security, and joy. But when someone has only ever known love mixed with pain, they start to believe that suffering is part of the package. They think, if it hurts, it must mean I care. If I'm struggling, it must mean this is real. They confuse intensity with passion, chaos with commitment, and sacrifice with devotion. And that belief, that's what keeps them trapped. Because they don't see the toxicity as a red flag. They see it as proof of love. Proof that they're fighting for something that matters. This mindset doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It often comes from childhood, from watching unhealthy relationships play out in front of them. Maybe they grew up in a home where love was unpredictable, where affection was given one day and taken away the next. Maybe they saw one parent mistreated by the other and learned that love meant enduring rather than thriving. Maybe they were told things like, real love takes work. And while yes, love does require effort, it should never come at the cost of your self-worth. But when someone has been raised to believe that struggle equals love, they will stay in toxic relationships long past the point of pain because they think this is what love is supposed to be. Then there's the belief that love can fix anything. Movies, books, and society as a whole push this idea that if you love someone enough, you can change them. That if you just hold on a little longer, if you just love a little harder, the toxic partner will suddenly become the person you know they could be. And that hope, that's dangerous, because it keeps people stuck, waiting for a version of their partner that doesn't exist. Every now and then, the toxic partner will show glimpses of kindness, just enough to keep them hanging on. And they think, see, they're capable of love. I just need to be patient. But what they don't realize is that love doesn't change people. People change when they want to change. And a toxic partner who has no intention of changing will continue hurting them, no matter how much love they give. Another reason people stay is because they feel like leaving means giving up. They've invested years, maybe even decades into the relationship. They've poured in time, energy, and emotions. And the idea of walking away feels like throwing all of that away. They think, I've already come this far. I can't quit now. But staying in a toxic relationship isn't the same as fighting for a healthy one. It's not a battle that can be won with patience and sacrifice. It's a losing game, one where the longer you stay, the more of yourself you lose. And yet, that fear of wasted time is enough to keep people trapped, clinging to a sinking ship because they don't want to admit that it's already underwater. Then there's the belief that pain is proof of devotion. Some people think that the more they endure, the more it proves their love. They see suffering as a badge of honor, as evidence that they are strong enough to handle the relationship. They take pride in their ability to forgive, to stay, to fight through the worst of it, and they think that if they just endure long enough, the pain will eventually turn into happiness. But love is not supposed to be a test of endurance. It's not supposed to feel like a battlefield where one person is constantly fighting to prove their worth. And yet, when someone has been conditioned to believe that suffering equals love, they will keep holding on, no matter how much it breaks them. Let's not forget about the false promises. Toxic partners are masters at making their victims believe that things will get better. They apologize, they swear they'll change, they promise that this time will be different. And for a little while it is. Things improve just enough to restore hope, just enough to make the victim believe that maybe, just maybe, all the pain was worth it. But then the cycle starts again. The apologies fade, the promises are broken, and the victim is left wondering if they imagined the good moments. But by then, they're in too deep. They've held on for so long they convince themselves they have to stay, because if they leave now, all the pain they endured will have been for nothing. And finally, there's the heartbreaking truth that some people don't believe they deserve better. When someone has been torn down, manipulated, and emotionally drained, they stop seeing their own worth. They stop believing that a healthy love is even possible for them. They think, this is just how relationships are, or worse, this is all I'm worth. And that belief is the most dangerous of all. Because when someone doesn't see their own value, they won't demand better treatment. They won't walk away. They won't fight for themselves. They will settle for mistreatment because they have been convinced that love is supposed to hurt. And until they realize their own worth, until they understand that love is not supposed to feel like suffering, they will stay hoping, waiting, enduring, mistaking pain for love. Manipulation is one of the most powerful tools a toxic partner uses to maintain control. It's not always obvious, and that's what makes it so dangerous. See, manipulation isn't just about lying or deception. It's about twisting reality until the victim can no longer tell what's true and what's not. A toxic partner will slowly rewrite history, making their victim question their own memories. They'll say things like, that never happened, or you're just overreacting, until the victim starts to believe they're the problem. Over time, they stop trusting their own thoughts, and when you don't trust yourself, you rely on the toxic partner to tell you what's real. And that's how they stay trapped. Then there's guilt, one of the most powerful emotional weapons in a toxic relationship. Toxic partners know exactly how to make their victims feel responsible for their pain, their anger, their failures. They might say, after everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? Or, you're really going to leave me after all we've been through? They twist love into obligation, making the victim feel like they owe them something. And the worst part? The victim believes it. They think, maybe I haven't been patient enough, maybe I should try harder. And so they stay, not because they are happy, but because they feel guilty for even thinking about leaving. And let's talk about emotional blackmail. Toxic partners will use fear, shame, and threats to keep their victim from leaving. They'll say things like, if you leave me, I don't know what I'll do. Or worse, if you leave, I'll hurt myself. They make it seem like walking away isn't just about ending a relationship, it's about being responsible for someone else's suffering. And for someone who cares deeply, that kind of burden is too much to carry. So instead of choosing their own well-being, they stay to protect the toxic partner. They stay because they believe leaving would make them the villain. They stay because they've been manipulated into thinking that their happiness isn't as important as the other person's survival. Another dangerous tactic is playing the victim. Toxic partners rarely take responsibility for their actions. Instead, they flip the script and make themselves the ones who've been wronged. If they cheat, they blame their partner for not giving them enough attention. If they lash out in anger, they say it's because you pushed me to this point. No matter what happens, the toxic partner is never at fault. And over time, the victim starts to believe it. They think, maybe I really am the problem. Maybe if I just change, things will get better. So they bend over backward, trying to fix something that was never their fault to begin with. And then there's the false hope. Toxic partners are experts at knowing exactly when to be kind, exactly when to offer just enough love to keep the victim from leaving. They'll be cruel, dismissive, or abusive for weeks. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, they'll be sweet again. They'll apologize. They'll say, I know I've been awful, but I'm going to change. And in that moment, the victim sees a glimpse of the person they first fell in love with. And that little glimpse, it's enough to make them stay, because they think maybe this time they really mean it. But the cycle always repeats. The kindness fades, the toxicity returns, and the victim is left wondering why they keep believing in something that never lasts. Another form of manipulation is creating dependency. Toxic partners don't just want their victim to stay, they want them to feel like they can't leave. They might control the finances, making it impossible for their partner to survive on their own. They might isolate them from friends and family so they have no one to turn to. They might convince them that they're not strong enough, smart enough, or capable enough to be on their own. And when someone hears those lies enough times, they start to believe them. They think, maybe I really can't make it without them. And once that belief takes hold, leaving feels like an impossible dream. And finally, there's the exhaustion. Toxic relationships are mentally, emotionally, and physically draining. The constant fighting, the emotional roller coaster, the manipulation, it all takes a toll. After a while, the victim becomes too tired to fight back. They stop arguing, they stop pushing back, they stop imagining a way out. Not because they want to stay, but because they don't have the energy to leave. And that's exactly how a toxic partner wants them to feel. So drained, so broken, so worn down that they don't even try to escape. Because when a person no longer has the strength to fight for themselves, they become much easier to control. When someone has low self-esteem, they don't just doubt themselves. They doubt their worth, their value, their right to be happy. They look in the mirror and don't see someone worthy of love. They see someone who is flawed, broken, and lucky to have anyone at all. So when a toxic partner comes along, they don't question the mistreatment. They don't demand better. Instead, they think, this is probably the best I can do. And that belief, that's what keeps them stuck. Because when you don't think you deserve more, you don't even look for more. You just accept what you're given, no matter how painful it is. This kind of thinking doesn't happen overnight. It's often the result of years, sometimes even a lifetime of being made to feel small. Maybe they grew up in a home where love had conditions. Maybe they were constantly criticized, compared, or made to feel like they were never enough. And when you spend years being told that your worth depends on what you can give to others, you start to believe it. You start to think that love isn't something you deserve, it's something you have to earn. And when you believe that, you'll tolerate anything just to feel wanted. Toxic partners can sense low self-esteem. They know exactly who to target. They don't go after people who are confident in themselves, who know their worth, who have strong boundaries. No, they go after people who doubt themselves, people who second-guess their decisions, people who are already used to questioning their own value. And once they find them, they feed on that insecurity. They make little comments, subtle insults disguised as jokes. You'd be nothing without me. No one else would put up with you. You're lucky I love you. And over time, those words sink in. They become truth in the victim's mind. They start believing maybe they're right. And once they believe that, leaving feels impossible. Then there's the fear of being unwanted. When someone already struggles with low self-esteem, the idea of being single isn't just about loneliness, it's about rejection. They don't think, I'll find someone better. They think, no one else will want me. And that fear, it's paralyzing. It keeps people in relationships where they are mistreated, where they are unappreciated, where they are unhappy, all because they believe the alternative is worse. They believe that leaving means confirming their worst fear, that they really aren't good enough. And let's not forget about the validation trap. When someone has low self-esteem, they crave validation. They need to feel like they matter, like they are seen, like they are loved. And toxic partners, they know that. That's why they mix the pain with just enough kindness to keep their victim hooked. One day they're cold, distant, cruel. The next day they're showering them with compliments, making them feel special. And in that moment, the victim feels worthy. They feel like maybe I am lovable. But the problem is that love isn't real. It's just another way to keep them trapped, always chasing the next high, always waiting for the next moment of approval. Another reason people with low self-esteem stay is because they think they can't do better. They compare themselves to others and think, I don't look as good as them. I don't have as much to offer. I should just be grateful someone loves me at all. And that belief is dangerous. It makes them settle. It makes them stay in relationships that destroy them, all because they think they don't deserve more. But here's the truth. No one deserves to be treated like they are disposable. No one deserves to feel like they are only worthy of love when they are suffering for it. And finally, there's the cycle of self-doubt. Toxic partners make sure their victim never feels confident enough to leave. They chip away at their self-esteem little by little, making them question every decision, every thought, every instinct. And when someone is constantly second-guessing themselves, they stop trusting their own judgment. They think, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I'm the problem. And that doubt, that's what keeps them stuck. Because when you don't believe in yourself, when you don't trust your own mind, you don't feel strong enough to walk away. And that's exactly what a toxic partner wants. Loneliness is one of the most powerful emotions a person can experience. It's not just about being physically alone. It's about feeling unseen, unwanted, and disconnected from the world. And for many people, that fear is unbearable. They would rather stay in a toxic relationship, no matter how painful, than face the idea of being alone. Because at least with their toxic partner, they have someone, at least they have the illusion of love, even if that love comes with suffering. To them, loneliness feels like rejection, like failure, like proof that they are unlovable. And that belief, that's what keeps them trapped. This fear often comes from deep emotional wounds. Maybe they grew up feeling invisible, ignored, or abandoned. Maybe they never felt truly loved or accepted by their family, their friends, or the world around them. And when you've spent your whole life feeling like you don't belong, the idea of being alone feels like confirmation of your worst fear, that you never will. So when they find someone, even if that person is toxic, they hold on. They convince themselves that something is better than nothing, that even a broken relationship is better than the emptiness of solitude. Society plays a role in this too. We live in a world that tells us that being in a relationship is a measure of success. Movies, songs, books, they all romanticize the idea that love is the ultimate goal, that being alone means something is wrong with you. People are constantly asked, why are you still single? As if being single is a problem to be fixed. And for someone already afraid of being alone, this pressure is overwhelming. They start to believe that walking away from a relationship, even a toxic one, means they have failed. It means they will be judged, pitied, or seen as unworthy. So instead of leaving, they stay, not because they are happy, but because they are afraid of what it means to be alone. And then there's the illusion of companionship. Even in toxic relationships, there are moments, small, fleeting moments, where the victim feels cared for. Maybe it's a rare compliment. Maybe it's the simple fact that they have someone to text, someone to come home to, someone to fill the empty space. And when someone is terrified of loneliness, those small moments feel like enough. They tell themselves, at least I have this. They focus on the few good times and ignore the overwhelming pain, because the alternative, Being completely alone feels even worse. This fear is also fueled by self-doubt. Many people in toxic relationships have been broken down emotionally to the point where they believe they can't be alone. Their toxic partner has convinced them that they are too weak, too needy, too incapable of surviving on their own. They've been told things like, "No one else will ever love you," or "You'll never find someone better than me." And after hearing it enough times, they start to believe it. They think, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not strong enough to be alone. And that doubt keeps them in a relationship they should have left long ago. Another dangerous belief is that time spent in a relationship equals value. People often think, I've already invested so much time into this person, I can't throw it all away. They feel like being alone would mean admitting that all those years, all that effort, all those memories were wasted. They don't want to start over. They don't want to face the unknown. So instead of walking away, they convince themselves to make it work, even when it's clear that the relationship is beyond saving. They stay because they are more afraid of starting over than they are of staying miserable. And finally, there's the simple, heartbreaking truth that some people don't even know who they are outside of their relationship. They've spent so long being part of a couple, so long sacrificing their own needs, their own dreams, their own identity, that the idea of being alone feels like erasing themselves completely. They think, who am I without them? And that question, it terrifies them. Because when someone has lost themselves in a toxic relationship, walking away isn't just about leaving a person, it's about finding themselves again. And for many, that journey feels too overwhelming to even begin. From a young age, many people are taught that relationships, especially marriage, are meant to last no matter what. They hear things like, love is about sacrifice. Every relationship has its struggles, and you don't just walk away when things get hard. And while commitment is important, these messages can be dangerous when they convince people to endure suffering just to prove their dedication. They start believing that leaving a toxic relationship means they have failed, not just as a partner, but as a person. They feel shame, guilt, and fear at the thought of ending things, even when deep down, they know it's the right choice. For many, culture and religious beliefs make leaving even harder. Some cultures strongly discourage separation, no matter how unhealthy a relationship becomes. Divorce in particular carries a heavy stigma. People are told to stay and work things out, even when they are being mistreated. Women especially are often expected to be the ones who hold the family together, no matter what they are enduring behind closed doors. They hear messages like, a good wife doesn't leave her husband, or think of the children. And so, instead of prioritizing their own well-being, they stay, believing that leaving would bring shame to their family, their community, or even their faith. And then, there's the pressure from family and friends. Many people in toxic relationships don't just fear losing their partner, they fear losing the support of the people around them. Maybe their parents adore their partner and would be disappointed if they left. Maybe their social circle is deeply intertwined with their relationship, making separation feel like losing an entire community. Sometimes, friends and family don't see the toxicity, they only see the image of the relationship. They say things like, but they seem so nice, or, are you sure you're not just overreacting? This kind of doubt can make someone feel even more trapped, as if no one would believe them if they chose to leave. Financial dependence is another major factor, especially for those in cultures where traditional gender roles are still expected. In many societies, women are raised to believe that their role is to take care of the home while the man provides. This creates an environment where financial control becomes a weapon. A toxic partner may ensure that their spouse has no access to money, no job, no way to support themselves if they leave. And even if they do work, they may fear that leaving will mean financial ruin, not just for them, but for their children or other dependents. When someone feels trapped by money, leaving isn't just an emotional struggle, it's a matter of survival. Children also play a huge role in why people stay. Many parents convince themselves that staying in a toxic relationship is better for their kids than splitting up. They believe that keeping the family together, even in dysfunction, is the right thing to do. But what they don't always realize is that children are deeply affected by the environment they grow up in. A child who watches their parents suffer in a toxic relationship learns that this is what love looks like. They grow up thinking that mistreatment is normal, that staying silent is the right choice, that enduring pain is what relationships are about. And so, by staying, the cycle continues. Because one day, those same children may find themselves in toxic relationships, repeating the same patterns they witnessed as kids. In some cultures, honor and reputation mean everything. People stay in toxic relationships because they fear what others will say. They worry about gossip, about being labeled as difficult or selfish for choosing their own happiness. Women, in particular, are often pressured to keep quiet about their suffering because speaking out could damage their family's reputation. They hear warnings like, "No one will marry you if you leave," or "You'll bring shame to your family." And when the fear of judgment becomes greater than the pain of staying, many people choose silence over freedom. Lastly, the legal system, or lack of protection, can make leaving impossible. In some places, divorce laws are complicated, slow, or stacked against the person trying to leave. In cases of emotional or physical abuse, some victims don't feel safe reporting their partner because they fear retaliation or they don't believe the system will protect them. If someone lives in a society where leaving means losing everything, their home, their children, their dignity, then staying, even in a toxic relationship, feels like the lesser evil. When the world around them is designed to keep them trapped, walking away isn't just a choice. It's a battle. Listen closely, because this is the part that too many people don't want to hear, but need to. Love, real love, it does not destroy you. It does not break you down piece by piece until there's nothing left of who you used to be. Love is not supposed to feel like a war you never stop fighting. Love is not supposed to hurt more than it heals. And if it does, if it drains you, if it steals your peace, if it makes you question your worth every single day, then it is not love, it's a cage. And the longer you stay, the smaller you become. But here's the truth that toxic relationships will never tell you. You are not trapped, you are not powerless. You are not destined to spend your life suffocating in something that does nothing but take from you. You can walk away. And no, I won't lie to you. It won't be easy. Leaving means facing fears that have been drilled into you for years. It means unlearning everything that made you believe you had to stay. But let me tell you something. On the other side of that fear, there is freedom. There is peace. There is you, waiting to be whole again. You see, people think leaving means giving up. No, leaving means choosing yourself. It means refusing to accept a life where you have to beg for the bare minimum. It means looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, "I deserve better." And you do. You do. Because you are not the names they called you. You are not the doubts they planted in your mind. You are not weak. You are not unworthy. And you are not stuck. So I ask you, what do you choose? Do you choose the version of yourself that settles for pain, for fear, for a love that was never love at all? Or do you choose the version of yourself that fights for happiness? The version that refuses to spend another second believing they are unlovable. Because let me tell you something, you are not hard to love. You are just loving the wrong person.